Hello there everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of my team career mode. This week, or this episode, we're at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in Imola, and I thought I would, straight off the bat, instead of showing practice, showcase a bit of the new Pirelli Hot Lap mode in the game. I elected to do the checkpoint challenge for this one. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Start with 60 seconds. And every time you pass the checkpoint, you gain a little bit more time. And the goal is to go for the furthest distance possible. We're in one of the McLarens. I can't remember the exact model, but it's a good opportunity to have a whiz around the track, have a bit of fun, and get our bearings a little bit. Of course, this car behaving very, very different to a Formula 1 car. The most notable thing is probably the brakes. They just absolutely suck. So you're having to brake a lot earlier than you would anticipate. And then second to that is the traction out of corners, which admittedly is fun, but certainly not as fast as a Formula 1 car. Running hood cam here as well. Normally I would run a cockpit, but it doesn't really matter too much. Seems like our run so far has been pretty smooth. The second sector quite fun in these cars. Kind of just chucking it in, hoping that it'll stick. Not having as many concerns on the exit. A little bowl turn there in terms of traction as you will eventually with the Formula 1 car. And you can really attack these curves quite aggressively, probably a little bit too aggressively there from me. And we actually get a warning there for exceeding track limits. But the first lap, relatively clean. I'm relatively happy with that run. Now, it isn't for nothing. You do get acclaim and cash bonuses depending on the medal that you get. So a gold medal earns you more cash and more acclaim. So they're certainly worth attempting and seeing how well you can do. Not a bad first lap there as we now move forward. 15 seconds remaining. Unfortunately, I didn't position my HUD perfectly, so it's a little bit difficult to know exactly how close we are to that gold medal, but I know at this point we're very, very close. And with 10 seconds left, it's really about just running as far as we can. In this session, there's a gate right before turn 1, so maybe we'll be able to hit that. It's going to be really close, and we just send it, we fall short into the gravel. Probably could have risked flipping the car in real life, but nonetheless, it will be a gold medal, so a bunch of acclaim and cash for us. And simply just a bit of fun. So probably the only time I'll show that for this series. And there, 1,000 acclaim and 100k in cash. In terms of some development updates though, we've had 4 successful upgrades, and more importantly, for this weekend at least, look at that weather forecast. Expected rain in the sprint session. No qualifying. Well, there is qualifying into the sprint, into the race. The new format here for Imola. And the race as well, wet, so it's only going to be a pretty serious challenge. Onto our qualifying lap here. Q1, currently P17, so we're outside of the cutoff and looking to improve, but we just go a little bit wide there, mounting the curb. No grip out there, and it shoots us out to the wall on the right.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint.
Unfortunately, as a result of that incident in qualifying, we will start the sprint in P21. Certainly pretty far from ideal. No pit stops in the sprint, of course. We don't really have much to lose from this position, so we'll be looking to drive as aggressively as we can. If we find a couple of spots for the race, that would be ideal. And importantly as well, we can get a feel for the race pace of the car. Now, just checking the rain there on the formation lap, or the weather in general. Last we saw, it was about a 71% chance of rain throughout the session, which would certainly make things very interesting if you had to roll the dice and pit for inters or wets and play that game or potentially just stay out on the slicks and hope that you can weather the storm. That's certainly something we're going to be keeping our eye on throughout this race, because if the rain hits, it could play perfectly into our hands. Purple parking there into the box, and it's 5 red lights for the sprint. The initial launch a little bit slow, a little bit of wheel spin, but all in all quite clean as we slam down the overtake. Fortunately, Latifi jumps us on the outside, and there's not really a gap on the inside. Piastri, our teammate, locking that out. And again, it's the 3 Australian drivers towards the rear of the field. Latifi cuts us off. No damage though to speak of, which is quite handy. A single train already forming. That opens up though into the hairpin. We take the outside line. Try and ride the curb and extend the track a little bit. Even with overtake, finding it tricky to keep with Latifi. We're forced on the outside, but certainly not the ideal line. Into the quick right-hander, and we'll just slot behind Latifi for now. And all in all, lap 1, it must be said, pretty far from ideal. Losing a position, our pace not amazing. And like most races, with our car not being particularly strong, we'll need to try and just hold out until DRS comes online, or until potentially some rain comes to throw the AI off. An okay run through the last couple of corners, but unfortunately a bit of oversteer on exit means that any run down the front straight goes punished. Now finding some straight line speed, but again, even with such a strong toe and overtake, really tough as we enter corner 1. Someone stranded on the inside, that's Magnussen. Fortunately for us, that's an additional position, so we'll take what we can get. And now with the pace disrupted, the cars up front going side by side, and now we've caught right back up. Straight into overtake. We think about a move down the inside, but Latifi covers. So we'll just slot behind him once more. Magnussen 2.8 seconds behind, so shouldn't pose too much of a threat in this race. Or the sprint, I should say. Only 11 laps in distance, again, no pit stops, so it'll be over before it really starts. Again, though, our pace through the second sector just not quite there as we move forward now to lap 5. 3 wide heading into the first corner. We look to capitalize, go for the switchback, but we use overtake on the exit, losing us a bunch of speed. The wheel spin, I just shouldn't have gone for it, being too greedy. Could have found 3 positions there, but instead we find nothing. Still locked out in P21, but Piastri on the outside with an engine failure. We'll take it because Latifi got caught up, but a disappointing result for him and for the team. Promotes us to 19th, and we do hold out against Latifi, at least for now. Question will be, can we catch the likes of Albon up ahead? As we fast forward all the way to lap 11, Latifi actually getting the jump on us, and look, it was just an okay sprint. Position 18 for the race. We do just have a quick update though in terms of our vehicle performance. Still right down the bottom, especially in terms of our aero package, so we're going to dedicate some resource points to that and hope we can really catch back up over the next few weekends.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Unlike most Formula One tracks, Imola is driven anti-clockwise and offers our drivers today just over 3 miles of glistening wet tarmac to negotiate. It's made up of a roughly equal split of 9 right-hand turns and 10 left-hand. Watch the drivers on the way into turn 16. Managing their speed there will be crucial, with the rain only adding to the difficulty of that downhill braking section, which then, of course, leads into the track's longest straight, though no DRS there today, of course. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And the smooth operator Carlos Sainz completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Perez, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Russell, Bottas, Norris, Ocon, and Mick Schumacher, Gasly, Magnussen, Max Verstappen, and Joe, Stroll, Albon, Nicholas Latifi, and Mir, Ricciardo, Vettel, Tsunoda, and Oscar Piastri. And now it's time to head down to the track. Not one of the easiest days to go racing. It's damp, it's slippery, there's dark clouds as far as the eye can see. The rain is here then, and that's going to take away a lot of the grip. Anthony Davidson, that's going to make turn one very interesting indeed.
Yeah, it's these kind of conditions where you can go in with one of two mindsets. You either see it as an opportunity, or you're worried that all of your hard work's about to be undone. We've been stuck in these conditions now for a few hours, more or less this kind of intensity, so we don't seem to have too much standing water, so we're not likely to be starting behind a safety car. And like you say, Crofty, the charge down into turn one would be quite interesting. I think we're in for a cracking Grand Prix.
Well, as Anthony Davidson said, there's two approaches really to the race. Do we get aggressive and attack, or do we try and maintain our hard work from the sprint? And I think logically it's wise for us to go for the first option. Try to attack this race, attack the rain, and hope that maybe we can find some positions. According to the forecast, it looks like the rain will persist throughout the entirety of the Grand Prix. So it should just be a one stop onto another set of inters midway through the race. And as we are on the formation lap now, really critical to get some heat into these tyres. The straights on Imola are not too long, so the tyres going cold shouldn't really be too much of a concern. Probably look to do a couple of burnouts though before the line. Get some heat in those rears for the launch. Very aggressive there on the burnouts, but as you can see in the bottom right, getting some serious temperature into the tyres, which is what we want, especially in that carcass. P18 looking to line up right behind Albon here. Another perfect stop, so we're happy with that.
Okay, incredible parking there. Nice one.
And now it's all about getting a good launch off the line as we hold in the clutch. 5 red lights, about 8,000 RPM off the line, and it's got to be said, actually a really good initial launch. Still modulating the throttle all the way up to 6th, and now overtaking engaged. A really impressive start, super happy with that, and we're going to fire it down the inside. Verstappen finds himself in P14. I don't know how that happened, but nonetheless now holding it side by side with Stroll, one of our arch nemesis in this career mode so far, but we slot nicely into P15. Going to be a big bridge in performance to the cars ahead, but if we look to just maintain this position for as long as possible, we actually find ourselves in a decent position. As Verstappen and Guan Yu Zhou continue to go side by side, maybe leaving an opportunity for us to catch up as the tyres maybe just feeling still a little bit off, a little bit cold, weaving on the straight to generate some more energy. You can see we're just struggling for traction out of corners, having to short shift quite aggressively and modulate that throttle so carefully. Even in 5th gear, starting to lose the rear end. Absolutely insane how much torque these cars generate as we enter the chicane for the first time in this race. And the AI, their traction, clearly stronger than ours, and in stronger cars as well. With Stroll behind there, we're almost hoping he'll be able to replicate what he did in the sprint, hold up the cars behind us, create that gap, and allow us to try and hang on to the cars in front. No DRS in wet conditions though, so that will be a real challenge as we start the second lap of the race. Verstappen and Guan Yu Zhou once again competing, jostling for position. That's 13th up ahead, and Verstappen gets the move done as we look to now attack the Alpha ourselves, but the snap oversteer on cornered exit, really bad for the most part. corner entry was actually relatively responsive and pretty consistent, but it was just those exits, which are really, really tough. And that's only going to get worse as the Inters wear. Their wear rate, though, quite low, so we should be able to be pretty aggressive with these tyres. They last a long time. Sideways movement though, the car's really not liking it, and we're not really gapping Stroll behind, who's been clinging on about 3-4 tenths behind us, and then I'm sure Ricciardo will be keen to get past him as well, close behind. But we're also not getting gapped too much by those ahead, so we might find ourselves just kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere. And we're doing everything we can to prevent that, being quite aggressive. We took low fuel load as well. Wet conditions, we're short shifting a lot, so we should naturally find that back quite easily. Time will tell though as we move forward onto lap 9. And yeah, we've kind of been left in the dust of Guan Yu Zhou. Almost 5 seconds ahead, and Stroll not fast enough to keep with us, about 4 seconds behind us. So we just got to keep grinding out laps here and hope that maybe we get a safety car or something else. Stroll, as you can see on the minimap, being the defensive line for us. Can't really complain too much, alleviating a lot of that pressure. As Guan Yu Zhou again, just extending that lead up ahead, almost 6 seconds now. But we are in P14, so we can't really complain too much. Just important in these conditions that remain focused and concentrated. Very easy to bin it in the wall in a lot of these corners. Now in lap 15, this was an undercut. I believe the window opened lap 16. So I mean, we're just trying something at this point. Ultimately, it's not really going to make much of a difference unless we find massive gains on these fresh tyres. And with the new pit stop tyre temps in this year's game, it is quite tough. They will be pretty cold on exit, so getting them up to temperature quickly and finding that pace will be critical. Last stint was 14 laps, the estimated tyre life 25, so we'll have no issues getting this set to the end. Moving on to the end of that out lap. We were in P20, but we'll jump basically everyone right back and slot to P16. Gap to Magnussen ahead 10 seconds. And we'll have to wait and see how the gap behind develops. Now out to 5 seconds to Stroll on lap 19. But we know that Tsunoda behind, quite pacey, and he's actually overtaken Stroll. A 6-second gap is what we'll need to try and defend for the next dozen or so laps in this Grand Prix. It's only about half a second, and I know these guys are really pacey. Already down to 3 seconds on lap 22, under 2 seconds on lap 24, and we were putting in relatively quick, consistent laps here, just super, super hard to match the pace of Tsunoda and some of those teams closer towards the midfield. Down under half a second here as we enter the final corner on lap 25, and Tsunoda is going to be a serious threat behind. We do have 45% of our battery pack to use to try and defend, and we go straight into overtake mode. You don't have to worry about fuel conservation either at this point. Almost half a lap in reserve, but Tsunoda just flies around our outside. We try to defend down the inside and we claim the corner, but on exit we just get a little bit loose. Tsunoda as well doing a good job to avoid us. He'll snatch P13, and yeah, lap 26 now. 2.5 second gap behind. We're not going to be able to catch Tsunoda, I don't think, and I doubt Stroll will catch us. Now, there might be a threat of Albon passing him and applying some pressure, but moving on to lap 32, that will not be the case. Stroll doing a decent job to fight back a bit, but we hold on, even with slightly more worn tyres. Around the final corner, still going sideways, and it will be P14 in Imola. Unfortunately, no points to show for some of our hard work, but overall, the weekend a little bit average. Actually, P15, as we get confirmation there about finishing position. Yuki Tsunoda for driver of the day.
And that's it then for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. And what a sensational victory they've managed to pull off here. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari. So let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. Charles Leclerc, currently leading the championship standings, extends his lead even further with this result. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
Yuki Tsunoda gets my vote today.
Let's move on to the constructors. Ferrari continue to extend the gap at the top of the table. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.